Once again, I'm David Ellis. I'm a game designer up here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a designer working on the Halo franchise. I've been here since 2010 with the recent release of Halo 4 on the Master Chief Collection on PC and updates to the Master Chief Collection for the Xbox Series S and X. There's renewed interest in Spartan Ops, which is one of the modes that I worked on as part of my career here. Worked on Halo 4. I've played through two of the missions I've worked on yesterday, and I thought I'd hop back in during my lunch hour today to play some more. Where we left off, you'll get a theme. Both missions from yesterday were on the Halo 4 version of Valhalla, which I forgot actually has three names. So the original version's Valhalla. Then in War Games multiplayer, it was known as Ragnarok, and I forgot in Spartan Ops, for some reason, we gave it a completely different name. It's known as Two Giants. I thought as we were hopping in, we could show off something real quick that I didn't really get a chance to do yesterday because I didn't have it fully set up, and I'm still not quite sure it's going to work. But I thought I'd bring up the top-down image that we had yesterday, and I actually have it open in Paint. And so I thought it might be interesting to go through the exercise of what sort of my paper design process, as I knew that I needed to have three missions on this one fully contained multiplayer map with PvE. And so in the first mission that we played yesterday, which was had to deal with rescuing Mountain Squad over the Pelican, player lands right about here. And the main path that I take the players down through here, there's a Spartan that's actually scripted to kind of lead you through this cave here, take you to the Pelican here. And this is where the first encounter takes place. You have some elites and stuff over here, and the Spartans are right here. And so this is the front right here. And the enemies meet in the middle. You clear them out. Then you sort of backtrack here a little bit, open up the door, go over here. This is where the big shield is. Shoot some bad guys, unlock the shield, and then your goal is to head here to the base because they're blocked off with custom shields. And you fight some, you go down into the base. So the basic flow for this mission is very directional. You're heading straight down here, backtrack just a little bit here, and your ultimate goal is right here. Clear everyone out. It shoots the ball into the sky. Boom. It's pretty. Lots of fun stuff. That's the first mission. And this is all... my eraser tool is not working the way I thought it did. Let's open this again real quick. Oh, okay, that's not working exactly. So we're just going to draw all over, have a different color. Please bear with me. This is my first time doing this. Second mission is primarily from the opposite direction. So you're starting here at this base, and most of it's, you're going here to try to open up this automated turret. Then you have a second one here and a third one here. And there's lots of fighting kind of mostly around the middle area. At that point, you're then gain access to the mantises here, where your fight starts in this direction, looking here, fighting mostly air vehicles, and then we start dropping ground forces in, and that's mostly taking you back into the middle. You're fighting here, then bring in a couple of more waves here, and at that point, you're directed to come here to this base where you're actually doing a lot of combat. At this point, we bring in the air vehicles. You're shooting, a lot of shooting up in the sky. You blow up a Covenant cruiser. You're a hero, right? Well, we have a third mission on this exact same level. So you can see my challenge here. The first one was all on foot. The second one was half on foot, but you did gain access to a mantis, which is strictly speaking a vehicle. Hey, Lost on Korriban, thanks for the follow. But it's a biped, so you're still kind of on foot, but in a vehicle. So in this third mission, we're going to launch into, it can be played perfectly fine on foot. but it's really built around Warthog, the Warthog experience. And once again, you start in this base. So I think we're just going to hop into it real quick and kind of go from there. But hope that gives you some idea of my sort of thought process and laying out all of these missions thus far. So, yeah, I think we're just going to hop in real quick. I'm going to turn the audio up slightly. Don't want to get into too much trouble with the music playing, but hopefully that's coming through okay. That's not right. There we go. So we're just going to launch into not Harry Call, which I did do a little work on, but we're going to load into Rally Point, which is where you're looking to gain information about Julam Dama as you're tracking him down. You might remember Julam Dama as the elite that gets stabbed in the first mission to Halo 5. Kind of an ignominious end for a character that, you know, thought maybe might have had a little bit more of a presence. So we're just going to load into it. No skulls. Actually, one thing I did wanted to mention, this is actually an interesting change, pretty dramatic change from Spartan Ops as we designed it in Halo 4. The Spartan Ops engine was kind of built from the Firefight engine from Reach, but it was had a lot of under the hood changes made to it. But our missions were basically laid out in two forms. We had a script that kind of declared all the different items that would be placed on the map, and sort of identified all the different enemies and groups of enemies that could be brought in, the squads and squad groups that could be brought in, the method that they get brought in. And then we'd have what's called a tag file that those would all be kind of laid out, and each objective would be basically kind of equivalent to the sets in Firefight. And behind the scenes, we could actually turn skulls off and on for each of the objectives within a Spartan Ops mission. But with MCC, they've actually decided to just give the player full control over what skulls are on and off, which is interesting. Definitely not the way we designed it or intended it to be played, but you know, it's something new and different. People can do crazy stuff. Some of the skulls I don't think actually work. I haven't tried it, but I'm pretty sure the Iron Skull doesn't actually work in Spartan Ops, which is why I was trying to approximate the experience of the Iron Skull with some of the scripting I tried to do for the second half of the season. But I think we're just going to launch into it and play from there. Okay, good. The game audio was really low. I wanted to make sure that was actually going to play and you'd be able to hear that. But we're going to launch into it. You're tracking down Julam Dama, trying to anyway.
Crimson and Majestic are online, Commander Palmer. Listen up, Spartans. You're both dispatched to locations where Julam Dama is rallying troops. No cute little competitions today. You're on the ground to work.
Just point the way, Commander.
Another thing I would point out that the first time you're here, I'm going to lower the game audio just a bit.
Commander, we've got word Julam Dama.
The first time you were here, it was very heavily Covenant based, and so one of the other differentiations I attempted was actually theming it a little bit more UNSC style. And so you'll see a lot of crates placed UNSC. Got some UNSC, I believe these are Marines, not Spartans. Yeah, placed up here with automated turrets. This guy's kind of floating off the surface. Didn't have a lot of real estate to deal with when they twitch around, but your goal is to kind of head to the base. So we're going to go do that kind of opposite zigzag. You can actually see there are enemies in the distance with the radar. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. Is I'm going to grab the Warthog from the beginning, and actually I think this is a good opportunity to talk about the importance of a good test or QA team in game development and honestly any kind of development. Oh yeah, so I think this is little props that I placed on here to be like, hey, the UNSC has actually kind of established this position here. And in case you weren't quite sure, here's the big UNSC logo placed everywhere. But there's a lot of Warthogs here, and my original intent for the level was players kind of grab these Warthogs and drive around with an AI gunner on the back. You know, we come back to a lot of people actually played Spartan Ops single player, and so you have an opportunity to have some AI teammates again. I'm curious to see. I think that is. So one of the most common faces from the Marines in Halo 4 was a designer that I worked with on Halo 4 and 5 named Matt Fenley. We scanned his face in. I think that's Matt's face. Matt's actually over at Bungie working on Destiny these days, but it always cracks me up when I hop in here and see his face. But I actually intended the player to be the driver because, let's be honest, the Halo AI characters don't have the greatest reputation for driving. And so I hadn't done any work to really script the AI to drive and do much on the level. But Test actually sent me a bug that said, hey, if you hop in the back and let the AI drive you, they don't actually drive you to the objective. And I could have just kind of let it go. But yeah, so I've gotten in the turret. That's going to signal to the Marine. But I took it as a challenge and said, hey, let's actually see if I can script the AI to actually drive you to all the objectives throughout the entire mission. So I'm actually going to attempt to play most of these missions with the AI driving. I did a ton of work on the AI's driving in this level. And I have to say, we'll see how it actually plays out. But my memory was that they actually do a pretty good job. But it took a lot of work to take care of it. And to make sure that that actually worked so that they sort of drive around, take you where you need to go. In this case, oh goodness, don't get too close to that knight. In this case, obviously I would like to point out again, oh, that's nice, I forgot about that. I scripted some of these crawlers. When the different waves of crawlers come in, they actually spawn in on the side of the tower here and climb down the side. That's actually an ability the crawlers had in Halo 4 that they didn't have in Halo 5, which was kind of a bummer, but I thought it made them a little unique. They could be frustrating to fight if there were too many of them, and especially if they were moving around too much, but in this case, they spawn in on the tower, and then they're scripted to just run down and then jump off, and then you're just fighting them at ground level. But I always thought that was pretty neat. And a nice touch. Most players probably never notice it, but as a designer, it's one of those things I see, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really glad I did that, because it helps to kind of justify the kind of otherness of the Prometheans. But you know, I gotta say, this Marine's doing a pretty good job. He knew our shields were getting kind of low, so he drove away. Not bad. So we're just gonna mark the last few enemies. We're picking up the extra Marine here. Gotta shoot some more. Now he's being a little not aggressive enough, but we're just gonna let him drive and see how they do. But so far, not bad. If we just circle around the back of the base, that would be the ideal here. There we go. I'm so used to, it's been a while since I played the Halo 4 Knights. I'm shooting the weak point from Halo 5 Knights, but they don't exist in Halo 4. But this machine gun turret does a lot of damage. So this one, yeah, should go on a follow here. So it's actually going to just track me and run around. So basically at this point, the AI is just driving, will just drive kind of in circles around behind the base, as I remember. So you actually have to go in the base. I'm going to hop out of the vehicle at this point. Yeah, so that the Marines should kind of stop. They might actually drive away. I can't remember how this one shakes out. But this is an opportunity to grab different weapons if you want to actually use some Promethean weapons, which is kind of cool. I'll hop back out here. I fear that... also, I would like to point out the grav lifts, or the man cannons, are actually on in this level. That's actually something that's different from the other ones. I think the Marine has taken off and left me here. So that's a bummer. Now, this is actually one of those, too, where if you're fast enough, you can actually kill... you kill those Watchers before they actually spawn in some of these enemies. So... this can play out a little bit differently, but it's quite challenging to do that. This is one of those where ideally I would have a Warhog with a chain gun, but I don't. So this is going to be tough, but fortunately these crawlers will run in. Hey Christian, thank you very much for the sub. I appreciate that. If memory serves, yeah, this was a bug I clearly never fixed. These Marines, I think, drive all the way back to the base. Hey, these guys are actually shooting all the way up there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's right. I remember that these crawlers are set on a follow, so they're following me wherever I go. And the idea is that you'd be in the Warthog. Let's see if I can chase it down. Come on. No. Come back. Excellent. Oh, there we go. All right, so this should play out the way I kind of ideally would like it to, with the AI driving me around. I think I never quite, it's kind of annoying that I never fixed that issue where the Marines would just drive off if you got out of it. I think you do have a time window where they will actually stay around, but if you take too long, they will just go right back into it. But I don't know, I love riding around the Warhogs, shooting enemies, picking them off. And so the idea was hopefully this would make this level feel a little bit different from the other ones, because you hadn't had any ground vehicle other than a little bit of ghost fighting on the first one. And so the idea was try to take all the elements of the sandbox and kind of mix them up. We're actually playing around here with Prometheans and Covenant, which makes sense because you're actually going to that first base being told that Jul 'Mdama is there, and there's, as I remember, in the story we basically said that there was like some kind of portal that was activated before you get there, and the idea was that Jul 'Mdama may have activated some Promethean technology there, which we'll play in later in the mission, which is coming up after a couple of waves. There's the Phantom flying away. This is actually one of the only encounters that I think I worked on as Covenant and Prometheans, as I recall, in the same kind of areas. But yeah, that was, so you see the crawler in here. We had some rules for how enemies were kind of spawned in, and I will be honest, we played pretty fast and loose with those rules, and in some cases just straight up broke them later in Spartan Ops because we just needed a little more flexibility here. I think there's another Wraith coming in here. But the idea was that there was a hierarchy for how they came in. The Knight would be generally the first ones that would come in, and then the Knights would spawn the Watchers, and the Watchers could then revive the Knights, but also spawn in the Pawns. And so the idea was that if a player was fast enough and quick enough, they could take out the Watchers. So this is kind of cool, seeing them actually fight alongside each other, which is kind of fun. But the idea is if you're fast enough with those Watchers, you can stop them from actually spawning in those characters, which is an opportunity to kind of change things up quite a bit, depending on how the player's playing. I don't know what it is. I always love elites with needlers. It's just something to me that's what I think of when I think of elites, but I know that most people, that is not what they think of when they think of elites, but I'm kind of quirky that way. I like having the enemies with lots of different types of weapons too, because it helps to differentiate them, kind of change things up quite a bit. That's right, I should have pointed that out in the last one. Thank you, Erikibu, that two people are primarily responsible for us bringing Ragnarok to Halo 4, and that was Vic DeLeon and Kynan Pearson, who was our lead multiplayer level designer. They did a lot of work to actually get those in. Without those two, this map wouldn't have made it into the game. I'm going to grab some ammo. Then I'm going to pop up to one of these turrets here, which I don't think you can actually aim low enough to shoot enemies, so it's kind of annoying. Let's see if I can get shots on. Oh, I can just kind of get some shots on it. I'll take it. Because you have unlimited ammo, of course, when you're on the turret. But I'm just going to try to take this Wraith out. I'm going to detach this turret. And suddenly that infinite ammo goes away. There's no logic to it. It's just game logic. I'm going to kill this last enemy here. There's definitely a few more waves, as I recall. You're kind of defending. Yeah, you're defending this area.
Can you dial in the coordinates Majestic recovered?
I think so.
And so you're tracking down Jul 'Mdama. As I recall, I think there's a couple more waves defending this area. This is one of those where it should have a fancy animation. Those were such a pain in the butt to set up. If anytime I could get away with doing one of these interacts without having to set up the animation, I generally did it. So I usually tried to put these interacts near combat so I wouldn't be required to do that. Oh yeah, so this was another custom bit of work. This was an animator named Sean Mitchell did this. Then I placed the effect. I think it's actually the same portal effect we use in the campaign. You died, so that was definitely a bug that I worked on. And so this is kind of cool. So the grav lifts actually turn on, and this was the other hook that you really hadn't had a chance to experience in this level yet, was actually using the man cannons and kind of having fun with them. I will say the decision to actually have the man cannon carry you into this portal to finish the mission, probably I spent more time working on this than anything else in this level, because the way we set up man cannons in Halo 4 was a pain in the butt. You basically have this kind of gravity multiplier that adjusts how much force is placed on the player as they enter it. But what was more complicated was, because I had placed human vehicles, a bunch of them on the level, a lot of players, and in this case testers, wanted to be able to drive their Warthog into the portal. So there's actually 2 different invisible man cannons underneath this effect that there actually may be more than 2. I don't know. There's at least 2, and they're each one of them is hand tuned to carry you into the middle of the portal or as close to it. Then you fade to white and we end the mission. We do this a couple of times where you actually have this kind of fade to white, but I'm trying to decide if I should hop in a Warthog and see if I can drive into it and see what happens, see if it still works. But boy, that was a pain in the butt. I will say, I'm going to pat myself in the back, I think that AI did a pretty good job driving me around. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see if I can line up this Warthog. I don't know if the Warthog's even going to fit. Oh yeah, look at that! Dead center. That was fantastic. I'm still proud of that. It was a pain in the butt, but I'm glad I did it. Chapter complete. Yeah, it's definitely a quick mission. Not a lot of meat to it. I was definitely stretching this map out as far as I possibly could. I don't think there was anything else we could have gotten out of that. So let's look through what else we have. I didn't work on either of those. I was actually talking to some of the designers that I worked with on Spartan Ops that are still at the studio, and maybe see about maybe having some of those guys on sometime and playing through some of their missions. I think the next mission I worked a little bit on was Escape Plan. I'm trying to actually remember here. I don't think I worked on any of these. Invasion, I did work on one of them. I think it's this Engine of Destruction. Covenant counterattack expected in Infinity's engine room. I'm just going to launch this first one because I can't remember if it was internally we had named the missions. I always think of these missions as E number, M number, episode number, mission number. So I think of it as, and you see it here, you know, you see backup is 7-1 up at the top, but I think of it as E7M3 in this case. But I can't remember if it was engine. I'll know the second I launch into it if it's one I worked on or not. We'll see. If it's not, I'll probably just back out of it and start the other one because I can't really talk in detail about missions I didn't work on. Obviously, while I'm playing, if anyone wants to pop in chat, if you have any questions or anything, I'm open to those. I won't be able to answer all of them, of course. Some of them I just don't remember. Okay, this is definitely not the mission I worked on. So I'm going to end this mission real quick. But fortunately, the load times are crazy fast with these updates. So that's pretty nice. Okay, Invasion. So that means Guns of Infinity, which actually, with how this mission ends, makes sense that would be this one. So as you recall, you're kind of going slightly reverse from the last mission, but this was fun because the entire theme of this entire episode kind of takes place in the Infinity. And I think players really liked that a lot. So I think if we had continued, oh yes. So this one's kind of a fun one. I give the player a bunch of sniper rifles right off to start with, and you have an opportunity to clear out some enemies, fodder before they move in there. Well, so the last minute thing that we'll talk about that turned out awesome is actually a moment, and I talked a little bit about this publicly before. This is just a fun setup here. They're all kind of making their way up here, but you have a lot of good opportunities to clear them out before they get here. It's just a fun sniper area. I think, I will say, we worked with Digital Extremes on some of these missions, so they did a lot of the work with the art, and they did some of the design stuff, and then we kind of took them over and finished them off in-house. But I think they did a really good job with this. It's just like a cool feeling. But you asked about what's one thing that was like a last second. There's a moment in the last episode, the last mission of the last episode, that I was really, with all of my missions, I kind of always wanted to have some kind of hook that players could be like, oh, that's the mission with X, or that's the mission with Y. So first mission that I did on Valhalla was like, hey, that's a mission on Valhalla. The second one, oh, that's the mission with all the mantises. And the third one is, hey, that's the one where you man cannon into the portal. At least that's how I wanted people to talk about them. And in this case, it's, well, you'll see at the end of this level. But mostly it's fighting through. There's two moments in this mission that I think probably people will remember. There's one that I call the hallway of death, where you're just really wrecking a lot of enemies. Let's see if there's any more ammo here from the sniper rifle. Doesn't look like it, but oh yes, I put even more sniper rifles on here. Yay me! But the idea is you can pretty much play this entire encounter is just sniper practice, but you very rarely get to do that in a Halo game, and I don't know, I thought that'd be fun, and I enjoy it, and it's nice you see the waves very clearly coming down through here. I want to say there's a moment where we actually have some waves jump out from the top, but there's a moment in the last mission that I was looking for the hook to that level, especially since it was the last one for the season. It was the season finale, and we really wanted to do something special, but we had no time or support to do much else. I mean, there's actually a cool moment where you actually go into the harvester and actually fight through that and actually turn it on, and you actually open up a whole other area to that map that you've never seen before. But there's a moment right at the end of the mission where something funky happens, and it's basically something I did. I came in on a Saturday, prototyped something, and put it together in about 20 minutes, and I think it actually came together pretty well. It's a nice moment, and it was one of those things that you basically kind of got lucky and did it right the first time, and players still kind of talk about it a little bit. So we'll get to that in a future stream for the last episode. Oh yeah, lots of buttons. Let's hit them. I think I worked with Brian Reed. Oh goodness, what was that? What was I doing? That was a crazy kill volume. I'm gonna go back down there. Is it because that door closes? I guess I was sealing that door, so I'm not supposed to go in there. That was, boy, I didn't give the player any kind of warning at all. I would say, yeah, the ammo counters on the, yeah, I need to follow my own instructions, but the ammo nav points that pop up when you're running low on ammo is a really nice touch here. Oh yeah, a Covenant enemy. Oh yeah, there we go. I thought I remembered that we had some enemies. We just spawned them up there and they jump down. It's an area the player can't access, as I recall. But, you know, there had to be some conversations about, hey, why are grunts using UNSC stuff? Because, you know, in past Halo games, they was treated like the Covenant never touched UNSC gear because they saw it as heretical. But, you know, we talked to the franchise team, came up with some solutions and reasons why that isn't necessarily an issue. But ultimately it came down to, like, it just allowed for more variety. And, you know, we always wanted to try to get that if we could. But notice, I don't think the Elite can actually get on that turret. I think it's just the grunts, and that was an intentional thing because it's always frustrating when you have an enemy, nice try, when you have enemies that are not headshot instant kill enemies on stuff like automated turrets or on machine gun turrets. They're really difficult to actually deal with. And I always try to avoid that. Similar thing with sniper rifles. Oh yeah, so I'm just sealing this door. I'm not going in there. Oh yeah, so I know I had some bugs where the players could get in there and get stuck. So my solution was just to throw a kill volume and then murder the player in the room. I guess that works out in the case where you don't have any, you know, you have infinite lives. So it's not ultimately the worst thing in the world if you do that. It was definitely intentional that I had this Elite drop a concussion rifle so that you can then use it to send all these enemies flying. Good sound work here by audio team. Anytime you're your health cut kind of low. It's kind of a cool, almost vacuumy sound effect to it, which is neat. Close the door. You'd think I would have just teleported the players out, but nope. Let's murder them. Cold-hearted. Oh goodness, that's a lot of enemies. Hey, but you know what? Guess what? This turret's set up here for me now. So I want to concentrate on this elite first. Clear them out. This elite's going to move up and actually kind of follow up. Now the grunts are going to scatter because all their bosses have been taken out. So the player just has fun times mowing down grunts. Yeah, it's all about like trying to change up the kind of view the players are taking. It's kind of a long encounter, but I'm actually having fun with it. There's just a lot of opportunities to, you know, make those headshots, and I think the composition for these enemies is a lot better because, you know, I'm not going crazy with the number of elites. Needler, really deadly. This is another one of those where Grunt can get on a turret, but the idea is the player can eventually get on it. I think there's a second wave of enemies that's going to come out of that bulkhead. So I'm actually going to try to move over here. I'm going to hop on the turret now, and now sort of a tables have turned. Another concussion rifle. I'm going to take this shield out. Now this elite's exposed. And then the grunts run away. I never get tired of that. So something about headshotting grunts is super satisfying, but I'm actually going to swap to all Covenant weapons here. Boy, you'd think that one point-blank concussion rifle shot killed him. I think at one point I had these waves come up where they would just keep coming if you didn't seal the area, but ultimately I changed that because it could be exploited by players to just oh yeah, so that's right. The idea is they don't see you. You can just have some fun with a concussion rifle, but I had to limit the number that came in because we realized that people could just eventually just farm those enemies, and you know, people did a lot that with Spartan Ops anyway, but it's not the way we wanted to encourage players to play. I don't know, that elite did get on turret. You can tell that animation, God bless the animation team for at least giving an animation for us, but definitely they weren't intended to get on those turrets. That's an interesting spawn point. I feel like I screwed that spawn point up. Feels like, I bet if I'd flipped that switch and then died, it would have spawned me over there versus over here. But that's okay. I'm going to use that turret. Something shooting me from the side. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, I did a good job there. I always would hang my head in shame if there's an instance where there was more than 5 enemies being marked. It was definitely something. I think I finished some of my missions earlier than some of the other designers. So I know I drove people crazy as I would play other people's missions and file bugs like a tester. Alright. So, I don't have any more grenades. If I did, I could get this elite off this turret immediately. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and hit that button and move on. Seal the bulkhead door. That's going to set the next objective. I think we're coming up on the murder hallway. This was literally an excuse to see how much I could throw at the engine without having it break. As I recall, I think we had about a hard limit of 20 to 22 enemies that we could have on screen at any time. So you had to be really clever with how you kind of staged your waves of enemies coming in. Like, how could you make it feel like there was a ton of enemies when you couldn't have a literal ton of enemies? But, you know, having them spawn off screen and jump down was another way that we could get extra enemies into the space without the player even recognizing where they were coming from. I think I'm going to grab a sniper rifle here. As I recall, yep, you get some Marines. This area here was just a fun excuse. Oh, this guy's taking cover about 5 feet away from that box. I'm guessing what happened is we have a firing point here where they could take cover, but this crate, something jostled it, made it move away, and so that Marine's firing point is still there. But like, put his back up against it, take cover, and then fire. This is just a fun opportunity to just deal a crazy amount of damage. Also, like similar to the earlier one, it's a nice long hallway, sniper rifle. Just practice your headshots. I'm gonna grab this DMR here, which I definitely placed intentionally. And once again, look at the enemy composition. It's a lot of headshot enemies. I wanted the player to be able to take care of that. Hey, Monkey, thank you very much for the sub. I appreciate that. I really wish I had some grenades now. Wish I hadn't wasted them earlier. I'm gonna have this guy get off the turret. But basically, I'm just gonna stand here and hold this trigger and then just melt enemies. 'Cause that's the whole point. But, you know, you have 2 lanes. Oh, I just shot that guy just in time. Really lucky there. Let's see. I might have detached that too early. Can't remember if there's any more waves here. But just look at the number of bodies that pile up here. And it's just, especially in co-op, this bit works a lot better because you have all the human players plus the Marines all moving up. It's kind of fun. Well, the idea is that there might be situations where you've actually would have warthogs driving around the ships and stuff, and so you had to build them to support that in case some crazy designer wanted to set it up that way. Oh yeah, so this is like an engine room setup here. You see the big Covenant cruisers outside. Hopefully I can get a good shot of this at the end, but the Infinities, you're actually in here, you activate the Infinities weapons to kind of take them out. Classic three objects, you gotta take them out to turn those on. Once again, I'm gonna prioritize the enemies that I can take out with single headshots. Save the elites for last. That's a general rule of thumb. Now that elites one-handing this, and I have a grenade this time, which of course makes the AI jump off of the turret for a second. And that's all you need sometimes. Now he's dropped the plasma cannon. I'm gonna take out this. I think if I remember correctly too, I also had to override the gravity on those objects because by default they were pretty light and they would just get bounced around all over the place, and I had to make them kind of stay in place a little closer. Throw a grenade, see what happens.
That's all 3 overrides. The guns still aren't firing. So I noticed. Trying to find out why, but you
Here's a joke.
are awful at writing technical manuals. Just a second.
It's going to be a joke about hitting buttons, if I recall.
Watch out. Hostiles inbound.
Ah, of course, another wave of enemy. Ah, that's the door that hadn't opened before. I kind of like the enemies coming out of these individual levels and doing these jumps. These space jackals were kind of a cool take on things. Grunts with their fart packs. In the code, the grunt had kind of a little jetpack, and it was called a fart pack. I got stuck by a grenade. I'm dead. But guess what? I'm coming back. Good job, Marine. I would say that I think on balance the difficulty tuning on this mission is a lot better than some of the earlier ones I did. So clearly I was learning, which is all you can ask from any designer. But, you know, you sort of reverse this encounter here. You're fighting down the other way, but now you can use those turrets. If you didn't grab them earlier, you can actually use them to take out the enemies, which is nice.
Spartan, hunters have entered the area. You can take them, Crimson.
Oh yeah, this was a very different encounter here. This was another one of those things where we got the opportunity to play with different compositions of enemies. You have hunters, and you have the well, I actually can't remember what we called them. Internally, they're known as bishops. All of the Promethean characters had kind of chess piece mentalities. I am forgetting my old man days. I'm forgetting what they're actually called. Watchers, thank you. That's it. Crawlers, watchers, and well, I think we stuck with knights, but internally they were like bishops and pawns were the watchers and crawlers. I was completely forgetting the term watcher. That's embarrassing. I see our friend the hunter doing the shield shuffle. I'm going to shoot him in the kneecap because they're exposed there. I'm out of ammo. I'm actually going to see if I can get this watcher and this hunter nearby. This watcher will actually shield the hunter, at least I think. Let's see. I can't remember if I set it up to do that or not. Watcher's low on health, so it's going to fly away and grab cover. Oh, hi. I totally forgot I had fuel rod cannons here. I don't think I had this composition set up, this enemy group set up correctly to have the Watcher actually shield the Hunter. But then again, Hunters wouldn't have mattered. I would have killed them either way.
Got it. Marking the controls for Crimson now. And these will bring the guns back online? Yes. Why would I tell Crimson to press buttons that don't do anything?
That was fun. I worked with I think I worked with Brian Reed on that number, or that line there. That was fun to have a little bit of joke about hitting buttons. But as I recall, this, yeah, activates aft weapons.
See? Worked perfectly.
And
Guns
these,
are back online. Enjoy the fireworks, Crimson.
yeah, this should be cool.
Nice.
Boom.
Some heads together out there, Crimson. Let's take down the rest of these freaks and call it a day.
Fun. That was neat. You know what? That was still a kind of a fun level. But, you know, it was another hook, because, like, how could we, you know, give each mission a little bit of identity? I think, you peeps, I got asked yesterday if we could do things over again. I think probably 50 missions were maybe too much. Or I think also, response to it may have been different if we had launched all of the missions at the same time. But, you know, that's one of the things you live and learn. I don't think I have anything in 8. Yeah, so I think my next level, there's a fun, if I recall, I'll need to ask, I think there's a fun Easter egg on Glassman that one of the designers put in there. But Search for Halsey is the next one. yeah, Roland and Miller had some fun banter back and forth. So Search for Halsey, somehow I always ended up with a lot of missions with Halsey's character, but that's okay. I always thought it was fun incorporating her into the missions because it just kind of felt like it elevated you as your player character and your team of Spartans, because you're interacting with, you know, the mom of the Spartans and someone who's, you know, very important in galactic importance. So this is another one of those multiplayer maps. I think this version of it is called Cyclone. I can't remember the version of it in regular multiplayer, but I should point out that the maps that are actually the multiplayer maps, these are actually unique versions of the levels. They actually have to be on the hard drive twice. That was just one of the limitations to our workflows back then, you know, almost 10 years ago. But they're not the same maps. They are unique and different. Oh yeah, I remember this intro. Those Covenant cruisers in the distance only had art on one side. So the art team had to do a lot of work for us just for that quick intro, and I appreciated it. This is definitely one of those missions where we swap zone sets halfway through, because you start with, and this was something we did as the episodes wore on, you'd play with the enemy composition. So this one starts with very clear, you're taking out Covenant enemies, and then we transition to Promethean stuff. Yes, did I say Covenant? I meant UNSC. Thank you for the correction. Once again, sort of starting the encounter out. Got some easy headshot enemies to take out. And I think if I recall, yeah, so these elites, they will hang back unless you move up, and there's a trigger volume in here that causes them to, once you shoot that grunt off of that turret, they then move up. And so if you, a little pro tip, if you want to just take out the other enemies from the front, if you leave that grunt alive, oh goodness. Yeah, he was definitely not scripted to get up there, but I also didn't restrict him to do it either. This poor grunt has no chance of getting to me. He gets me more ammo. Let's swap weapons and hop in here. So for these missions, how long do they take? It really depended. Each level is a little bit different. I would say in general, you'd have the basic flow set up in about a week. And then you basically, had a couple of weeks here and there for each pass. And then, you'd get bugs and you have polished passes. So each mission was different. This one took a while, and you'll see why later in the mission. It opens up pretty, I don't want to say standard, but it is kind of a standard kind of setup. You have enemies defending an area, and then you're, sort of clearing them out, and then fighting off a couple of waves of enemies. But then, once again, always trying to find kind of interesting hooks to missions. It's just something I always wanted to do. Oof, those sniper jackals, always a pain in the butt. But, it was definitely a couple of months here and there. But it all depends. I think, as I recall, there's 3 different groups of spawn points you can get here, and they're all kind of outside in looking on this area. Let's see if we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there was a 5th one that I killed, so still hit my count right. Pretty sure the enemies are... Oh no, okay. So the Zealot Elite, their behavior basically was set up to kind of chase you, but if they got too far outside of their assigned areas, they would then retreat. This is actually kind of a fun moment here. I love those little kind of gotchas every now and again when you open the door. So just to give you in the background, that room is completely empty at this point. And then as you go to move up to the door, I spawn a brain dead hunter and then give them a behavior. And if it works right, we should have a fun little surprise. This door, by the way, I'm pretty sure it's not centered. Yep. So I hand script them to come out here, and then they just go into the regular behaviors. I kind of wish I didn't have those Zealot Elites, because I will say the encounters with swords and hunters don't work great. In fact, I had another Zealot in there. That's silly on my part. Oh yeah, fuel rod. More fuel rod grunts. See, I don't mind the fuel rod grunts because they're easy headshots, but these hunters, didn't have many shots on that fuel rod kind. But on either side there are hunters, and they will try to punch you, but it's timed out that you're almost never going to get hit by them. I can't remember if the actual... Yeah, the invisibility doesn't actually work very well against the AI. You grab a grenade and have a terrible throw. This fuel rod should have a couple of shots. Alright, one more with the sword. Cool. This is one of those where, remember what weapons I have. I have a fuel rod gun and a sword. I have a feeling there's going to be a zone set swap here in a second that I think is going to cause me to drop this sword. We'll see. This is unfortunate lighting here. You can't actually see the text because it's so bright. I always felt bad in instances like that. Oh yeah, did you see that? I can't... Excuse me, sorry, just drinking a little water. I think there's going to be a zone set swap here in a little bit. I can't remember which weapons get kind of removed from the limit. Definitely not swords, because you have the opportunity to get more of them. Oh yeah, did you see that fuel rod cannon's not there anymore? But there's definitely some... there are definitely some weapons you don't have access to anymore. So we talked about always trying to differentiate each time you went into a level. So the first mission here was a designer named TJ Perillo did that. And it was all about, as I recall, diffusing some missiles that were set up here. And then the second one Tom French worked on, and that was actually vehicle level with Warhogs driving around, destroying Promethean kind of setups. this one in particular I thought would be fun because you do Covenant first, and then we have this area in the back, which in the other missions on this level, we actually had the art team block off this space, so you didn't actually get access to it until this mission. Yes, that's right, and the artillery setup here. But a bunch of Prometheans are going to show up here.
Prometheans.
But nice thing is you have a few swords here. See, I killed that knight before it could actually spawn in a watcher, so that's cool. Oof. I don't know if I have the right weapons for this fight. In fact, actually, I don't at all have the right weapons for this fight. At least the first part of it. I probably should have placed some weapons out here that you could pick up, but I'm pretty sure I did not. But I'm just going to check in real quick and see if I might have set up some of those. Let's see. If past David... I don't think I did. And I think it's probably one of those where I was really limited in the weapons that I could have at this point. Ah! I do have some weapons. Yay, past me. Thank you. What is this? Pistols? Let's keep the BR. This is nice here because you can take out these turrets from a distance. As I recall, when they're charging up like that, if you shoot them right in the middle, yeah, it's a weak point and it actually deals more damage. I think these are, yeah, crawlers. Take them out real quick. So in my long-standing quest to always like try to really change up my enemy compositions in every level. So you have these 400 turrets here, and we should do something fun with them. So during development, the plan with those turrets is that oh man, I did not place that switch very well. Hey, it's 400. They float. The idea with those 400 turrets is that you would actually be able to kind of hack them as the player, and actually have them fight for you. But through development, unfortunately, that feature kind of got cut. But I always really liked it, and so we talked about last time that sometimes when you're working on a feature that's coming in hot, there isn't sometimes a lot of opportunity for people to shoot down ideas. I just scripted that setup in the second half of this fight where the turrets actually will fight on your side. And there's little switches next to them, so if they get destroyed, you can then respawn them in. So the fight changes like pretty dramatically on whether you actually are using those or not. But I would say, especially if you're playing solo, I would encourage players. Man, you don't really want to turn around and see that set up. But I would encourage you to use those turrets, switching sides, because see if these knights will move up a little bit. Nah, teleported away. It's alright. Put some headshots. This 400 turrets, I'm not going to do too much damage at that point. Another watcher came in. I'm going to kill them because I don't need the knights coming back to life. Alright, so I'm going to stay back here because those knights in the interior won't move up. I think there's a trigger volume right around here. Ah, I died. I think if I'd moved up a little bit, those knights would come around the side and actually move up. But you can exploit that a little bit. Alright, I gotta get my button gear and finish this mission. Psst, wrong button. There we go. I'm gonna use my assault rifle. Come on, knight. Ah, they teleported away right before I could take them out. Where those ships came from? They came from me saying, "Hey guys, I'd really like to be able to be some UNSC ships, so it looks like there's a big group of people looking for Halsey." that's the honest answer. There's the ammo right here. If I can get, yeah, I think if I kill one or two of these crawlers, the knights should move up here. Actually, let's test my memory here to see if that trigger volume does work the way I think it does to cause those knights to actually move up. As the player kind of gets here, maybe not. Maybe I just got unlucky. Although at this point, since there's only 3 of them left, I think their encounter is set up to pull them here, so the player really has to come to the interior. I really don't know if I needed these interior turrets. They're kind of annoying to deal with. Okay, so we have a crawler. There should be 2 knights left. I'm going to pull bolt shot because it's a pocket shotgun. Yep, so when you see the knights' lights move like that, it's basically their shields going away. Oh my gosh, that was unfortunate. Alright. It's always frustrating when you die and there's 1 enemy left, and now you have to run all the way back. But now I'm remembering all these little boxes. These are ammo crates. Yeah, give me max ammo. Versus spawning the player with max ammo, but when you spawn and you see one of these boxes, always run to them. Because they will make sure you have enough. I'm going to swap for a night rifle. Use... Oh, what a jerk. Use this interior space to my advantage. Take them out. I bet there's a switch to hit. The real answer there is we could have timed it out so it wasn't activated on a switch. But the reality is that if we didn't actually change it based on player interaction, it messes with timing a lot. And you can't guarantee at least one player is going to be in the position you need them to be in to set up the next encounter. But one of the things I always enjoyed, although ironically in that case, there wasn't an interaction there. Alright, so we have a good defend set up here. Something interesting is happening here. These turrets just came online, and you'll notice that they're shooting blue beams this time versus the last time. That's important from a lore standpoint. There's a lot of things we were kind of hinting at story-wise in this particular mission. That, well, I will say the trick here is to make sure you have headshot weapons to kind of clear out the crawlers. Let the turrets focus on the knights as much as you can. And if the turrets die, there are switches near them that you can then respawn them. But in general, if you are mostly focusing on the crawlers... Where is that crawler? There he is. And those knights are mostly hanging back up until... Oh, there we go. Hop down. We have a bug with the AI in Halo 4 where if you have too many jump hints around the level, they will just keep doing it over and over again. This crawler is just going to keep doing that. Oh, that's good. We had a little VO there, so if we hold that button, turret respawns here. Pretty critical thing here, and I think I set up the AI so that they wanted to pay attention to the turrets more than the player. There's actually we have some controls in the back end to basically determine how scary an AI sees something like an enemy like that. But basically, when you're fighting this encounter, you want to really try to focus on making sure you keep all those turrets active at the same time if you can. So this was another fun thing here where I always liked the idea of having encounters where you actually had 2 groups of enemy AIs kind of warring with each other. And so I did that again here. Another one of those cases where you'll see some sentinels show up later in this encounter, and I always thought that was really cool. The idea of you start out by having a whole bunch of watchers come down, and this was just fun, just seeing the turret shooting. This is what I talked about with the mission the other day, is bringing the player's attention from the ground up to the sky and kind of bringing it back down. It sort of changes things up a little bit and makes it feel fresher, even when you're ultimately just doing the same thing, if you're setting it up, the right way. And if you get them right there in the middle, you got more waves coming in. The nice thing too, these watchers have nowhere to run. I'm actually going to use my assault rifle. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, see, this is just cool. I like them mostly in this encounter. I like to just run around and just watch. I mean, how cool does that look? I think that's rad. So I'm just going to spawn this turret. You don't really have to do a ton of fighting, especially when you have your own automated turret you can call in. They will just wreck them. And this is just like a moment where you get a bit of a power fantasy, and you as the player, you're not doing anything. I think that's fun. So this coming up was one of the most difficult things to do. Is I wanted to have like a cool moment at the end of the level as well. And you know, the idea, like story wise, is that there is a character actually helping you behind the scenes, and there's a bit of dialogue that plays here in a little bit. So this was really tough to set up. I'm not going to confirm or deny who that character is, but this was tough because you have to activate it. Right as you activate it, these sentinels, which are mostly just flying around here, will all fly up to a central area and fire their beams to kind of activate something. I'm going to have to sprint to actually see it, but if I had it to do over again, I probably would have had another switch activate somewhere out here, so that it was better framed. But we were tying everything to this piece of equipment being really important for some reason. I'm going to activate that. As I run out here, I blipped all the sentinels, and the idea was I was doing everything in my power as a designer to grab the player's attention. That's right, you don't have unlimited sprint in Halo 4, but all these sentinels are going to fly over here, start firing their beam. And they make a cool noise too. And then they activate that. Shouts out to the effects team for supporting my crazy ideas in this situation. I can't remember. I think there's a bit of dialogue hidden in the hidden in the sound effects for that effects when it plays. I can't remember if you can actually hear it. Oh, yes. That is the bit of dialogue, so it's clearly still in here, Erikibu. Thank you. But yeah, I don't know. Just playing around with Sentinels, I just thought that would be fun. I like that encounter. I still think it's neat. I don't have any complaints about it. Get picked up by my pelican friend. And that's the end of that mission. Which, that's good timing. So I think I only have one mission left, which is the finale. So I think we'll do that next week while we play. I think that was pretty fun. I don't think I had as much behind the scenes set up there, but yeah, so I think next week we'll be back. I'm gonna turn this off real quick. Okay, there we go. I was just transitioning the camera back to the full screen here, but yeah, so I'm off tomorrow. I took the day off. It's my my birthday, so I am my wife and I are gonna drop our daughter off at daycare and have kind of a date and hang out and have some fun, and just by ourselves without the kiddo. So that'll be fun. I appreciate the early birthday wishes, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, so we're gonna be back next week. Won't be here tomorrow. We're taking off, but hopefully you enjoyed these. I think that mission holds up. I still enjoyed actually both of those. But when we come back next week, we'll play the finale. Then I might talk to someone, see about getting some of the other designers to hop on here and maybe play through some of their levels, and we can kind of chit chat, see if we can make that work for next week. But we'll see. But until next time, hopefully everyone out there takes care, stay safe, and be good to one another. And until then, yeah, we'll see you next time.